I talked about this not too long ago about how I believe the world is going through the dark night of the soul. So all this immense chaos that is happening, um, the natural disasters, the wars, there's just really bizarre decisions that are being made often on our behalf, and the lack of control that we're feeling. And it kind of mirrors what happens to us when we're experiencing our own challenges, right? When we're going through our own dark nights of the soul, when we're being invited to transmute some of our own traumas and all that stuff. And in this process, on a collective level, the unfortunate truth is that there are casualties in this collective split. And even in those casualties, I believe that that's how often how transformation begins, right? And so it's a hard pill to swallow because there's this realization that like, oh, all these challenges that are happening in my life are part of is an invitation for me to let go of certain things and belief systems and let go of a version of myself that is no longer working or no longer nourishing, right? And so again, so if you think about your own life, what usually happens before a breakthrough, right? Setback after setback, like things just everything starts to go wrong, right? Let me move this a little bit because there's too much lighting over here. I probably should close the window. But like there's a total unraveling that happens to many of us when we're experiencing back-to-back challenges, and I feel like on a collective level that's what's happening in the world right now, because on an individual level the real you is begging to be seen, to shed false identities, like I said before, to kind of wake up, like, and sort of whatever trapped illusion that you might be trapped in at the time. And so again, this is what Carl Jung calls the dark night of the soul, and I believe that's where we are collectively right now. The humanity is being invited to shed, is being invited to choose which path they're going on. And so the planet to me is having a spiritual reaction to all of the things that are happening, because there is definitely an imbalance of those who are in service to self versus in service to others. And so I believe the earth is having this really severe allergic reaction to it all. And what happens to your body when it rejects something toxic? You kind of go through a detox emotionally, physically, maybe even spiritually, depending on what it is. So I feel like that's what's happening in the earth, right? And so, just looking at the chat here, and I believe that's what all the chaos is. The wars, again, the disasters, the politics. It's like the biggest purge before healing actually takes place. Now, I'm not sure how long this purge is going to last, you know, but it's happening. And it's not something that we can stop or prevent from happening, because we're all being faced with different levels of it, right? Whether people who have lost their jobs, and it's terrifying to know like you had that security and now that security is gone. On the flip side, it could also be an invitation. Obviously, I don't know what is going on in people's lives specifically, but I know when I left my job, I was burnt out, and I actually needed, like, my life had to collapse before I could finally make the decision to say, oh, I need to walk away from this because my health was in jeopardy, right? And in retrospect, like that was very scary. But now I'm like, oh my God, that was the best thing that happened to me. So it's kind of hard to see the silver lining in a lot of this chaos because a lot of it doesn't make sense right now. And I believe everything comes full circle. And I also believe that none of this stuff is happening in vain. It just, I can't wrap my head around that this stuff is happening in vain. Like, I do believe in God. I believe in one source creator, and it's not about religion. It's just about the fact that like all these casualties aren't happening by chance, by for no reason, right? And I do believe that there is something at the end of this end, right? I had a client say to me, she was actually experiencing some challenges. Actually, probably um, she was actually experiencing some challenges, and I said to her, it's a cliche thing that we usually say to a lot of people, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And she said, I heard this from someplace else, that to find the light within the tunnel, to find the universe or God within the darkness, even before you get to the end of the tunnel. And I was like, oh wow, that's a very powerful way to kind of view things, especially when you're in the midst of like some really, really intense changes. And so there are three groups that are going to be part of the split, in my personal opinion, and this is what I see. Some people are fully in service to themselves, and we know who they are. We know who some of those people are. Some are aligned with darkness, and it shows, right? And I want to say that this isn't like the opposite of things. So, and what I mean by that is that all of this is a varying degree. Sometimes we think the opposite of light is dark. And so if you're in the light, you're never going to be in the dark because it's the opposite. I don't believe that. I believe that it is a spectrum, it's a degree. And sometimes we're 1 degree away from either the light or 1 degree away from the darkness, depending on the circumstances, depending on the context, depending on what happens in our lives. It's not too difficult to fall. Hey there. Oh yeah, I remember you. I remember you. I think it was Quebec Beauty. It's good to see you. But yeah, I feel like so we're on this like degree, and it's just one end to the other end. That's it. It's not necessarily opposites. And so some people again are fully in service to themselves, and we know who they are. Some are aligned with the darkness, and it shows. And then, but the majority, I feel like, are stuck in emotional and also spiritual limbo. Um, oops, whatever that means to you, right? And so, when you're stuck in that emotional limbo, we can even take the spiritual out of it, but it's hard to do that. Often feel powerless. So there's a group of us that are starting to feel really, really powerless right now. And we feel hijacked, we feel confused, we feel mistrustful. And so as a result of all that, some of us may be staying small, balled up, or kind of like frozen, like our nervous system is like all jacked up based on all this chaos because we don't know which way to move. And then even in the midst of this chaos, some people might even be thriving in different ways, right? And so there might be some guilt in that because like life is actually pretty good. And um and so I feel guilty for actually experiencing the beauty of life even in the midst of this chaos. And this is why I say it's such a varying degree. What's going on, CJ? Been a minute. And so but it's just something to kind of like be mindful of, okay, where am I in this space? And so when I say that some people will be left behind in this split, it, it's like, so when this split happens, it's not like a physical, like the earth is not like physically separating, it's energetically um, left behind. What I mean is in their fears, right? So if you're hijacked, because a lot of people out there, if you notice, there's a lot of doom and gloom being shown to us. Like it feels really scary, and I can't fall into that fear because then it goes against everything else that I believe in, which is like there is a bigger power at play, right? That will eventually help neutralize a lot of these things that are happening. Like I really believe that because then if I didn't believe that, again, then our lives would be in vain, right? And I don't believe that. I believe that each one of us serve a purpose here in different ways. And so when I say that people are going to be left behind, some people are going to be left behind in their fears. Some people are going to get so hijacked by what they see on the surface. As I said, the tree analogy. And then if you watch the replay, you can go back to what I mean. What's going on, Sean? It's good to see you. If you watch the replay, you can go back and see what I mean by the tree analogy. Um, some of us may just see the surface. I'm just talking about the split that I think is happening spiritually right now. But some of us will go in the deeper in the roots and see what this is really truly about. And so some people are going to be left behind in their fears. They're going to be left behind in their negativity, in their hate, and in their service to self. And that's what I'm feeling, and that's what I'm seeing. And the book, The Law of One, echoes this. It says that you must decide, because policies won't necessarily save us, right? Because on the other side of the whoever is making that policy, are they in service to self or service to others, right? Are they coming from love or are they coming from hate, right? And there's no ambiguity in that. Like, you almost have to decide, because if you are ambiguous about all of that, your life will reflect that ambiguity. Anybody else have trouble with that word? Ambiguity. Anyway, um, because again, if the people who are writing these policies are full of hate and disconnection, then how does that serve the greater good? It doesn't. Everything right now is trying to be rebalanced, because the universe is about balance, and not uh, not the idea of like self care balance, but energetic balance. Oh, what's going on, Lily? And so, because all of this chaos that's happening in the world, it's teetering us off balance. And so the planet is responding. Yeah, not too long ago, me and my partner were caught in this 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Bangkok, Thailand. And it's like the earth is like doing its best to hold all of these intense frequencies that a lot of it is just rooted in fear and hate and negativity. And I'm not saying to slap on some positive mindset hack. I'm not saying any of that. Um, what I'm saying is that we're within ourselves, because the world is just a reflection of our internal world. So it's like, okay, where within myself do I need to do a bit more healing? Because that healing is going to actually help recalibrate these intensities that are happening. And so when I say people are going to be left behind, they're really just going to be left behind in their hate and their negativity. That is all. And so anger isn't the enemy, but it can be a destination if we're not careful. Anger is useful. It's a beautiful emotion, because it helps you reconnect with your own personal power. It helps sometimes activate action within yourself. So use that anger in a way to channel the person that you'd like to be in the world that you'd like to live in. Sometimes some of us are just getting angry and we're just like running into chaos. People like, setting Teslas on fire, all those things. Like people are out here wilding out with their anger. And that's not very useful to us on the long run. I mean, obviously everyone has their own individual journey and they kind of need to figure that out on their own. Like I can't help with that process. No one can help with that process. And you'll find that like people are getting reckless with their anger. And a lot of us are stuck in that anger. Um, anger, it's powerful. It is uh, catalytic, right? It helps us create boundaries. It protects. Anger shows us where the imbalance is happening, and it helps us use our voice in a way that's more empowering. But if we stay stuck there without integrating the wisdom from the anger, oh, it becomes poison. It becomes absolute poison, right? And so, I don't know if anyone's read the book by, I think it's David E. Hawkins or David R. Hawkins. Anyway, he talks about the map of consciousness. Yeah, stuck in the loop of being reactive versus proactive.